The skills for the new legendary Cavalry Open Field Commander have been revealed, and Huo Qubing is insane. He does a ton of damage factor, and if you've been subscribed to my channel, then you knew a Cavalry Commander just like this was right around the corner. Stick around in this video for all the things you need to know about this brand new legendary Open Field Cavalry Commander that should be showing up in the Wheel of Fortune really soon. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in this video I want to review every single skill on the new legendary Cavalry Commander because they are insane. And if you have been subscribed to the channel, then you knew that a Cavalry Commander just like this was probably around the corner. In fact, I have been saying for ages in my legendary commander guides which commanders you should invest in and which commanders you shouldn't. So we'll get to the pairing section in just a bit. First, let's review all the skills. The active skill costs you 1,000 rage requirement, and it deals direct damage to a target troop, damage factor 2,700. Bro, the damage factor here is insane. Now that damage factor is cut in half, that's 1,350 if serving as the secondary commander. This gives you some serious Edward of Woodstock vibes. It also reduces the march speed by 50% for 3 seconds. Man, we've come a long way since the power level, however, of Edward of Woodstock, who really needs a buff on his active skill to continue to be relevant. This 2,700 damage factor is insane, and I suppose that Huo is so good you could use him as the secondary, but why? Like, the only reason you use him as a sort of secondary is if you thought someone else's talents were better, and there's no talents, in my opinion, worth that amount of damage factor that you would ultimately lose to make him the secondary. So this active skill constrains him, in my opinion, to basically, I'm not saying the only way you could run him is if he's the primary commander. I can't envision a situation where you would try to make him the secondary. All right. From here, the second skill, cavalry units led by this commander gain 40% attack, and while outside of Alliance territory, their cavalry units gain 15% march speed and deal 5% more damage to archers. Look, so far everything is looking good, but what do I want to see? I want to see some defensive capability. Look, Nevsky's a single target damage commander, but I want some defensive capability, and then he'll have a lot of longevity. We look to the next skill, Dragon of the Desert. If this commander's troop has not been garrisoned in a building for at least 30 seconds, every time their troop enters combat, it will gain the following buffs for the first 15 seconds of battle. It deals 30% more skill damage. Active skills cost 150 less rage. And after 15 seconds, their troop will deal 10% more normal attack damage. Now, I don't know if this is swapping what the benefit is. Oh my God. If you start the fight with, for the first 15 seconds of battle, that's right, it's swapping the benefit. So in the first 15 seconds, you'll deal 30% more skill damage and your active skills fire faster. So what does this signal to me? Although Huo does not have a major debuff, I mean, he cuts the march speed, you probably want to pair with a commander that is going to do some powerful effect that all your other troops are going to benefit from, aka Joan Prime. Okay, you'll pair with Joan Prime. We'll talk about that in a minute. But after 15 seconds, the troop will deal 10% more normal attack damage. This skill is actually super weak when you stay in combat for a long time. Good thing that you'll frequently accidentally break combat, even if you don't want to. But in a big brawl, like this starts out being cool, but then drops in power level very, very quickly. I'm telling you, 10% normal attack damage is actually super weak as an effect. But the good news is that you won't be in battle for a long time. But where does this really hurt him is in a rally capacity. Are we going to see rallies that are run from like 30 seconds away from the garrison you're going to hit? And then like you cancel the rally after 15 seconds just to cheese out some damage? It is possible. But let's keep going because I'm not sure he's a great rally commander. He probably will be. But when attacking an enemy troop, cavalry led by this commander gain 30% defense. There's the defensive capability I was looking for. And they deal 20% more skill damage. Whew! Now, the thing is that this is constrained to attacking enemy troops. I don't think that a garrison qualifies as an enemy troop. I think they're talking about open field. So I think if they're in a resource node, if they are in a flag, fort, or holy site, I don't think you get the benefit here of the extra defense and the extra skill damage. So what's interesting is that he's not really designed for swarming stuff, it would seem. Now it says, whenever their troop defeats an enemy troop, some of its slightly wounded units will be healed. That's 1,500 healing factor, and the cooldown is 8 seconds. Does not reset after you exit combat. So obviously this dude is designed for smashing in the field. Smash march after march after march. Very rarely will you sad face lots of troops to get a big benefit from this healing factor, right? Like if you're battling barbarians, I mean, hey, yo, you get a lot of healing, but like this is not, you're not going to full sad face lots of enemy troops. And I think that anytime you would see defeat, like the march was fully sad faced in the report, they get to 0%, you should get this heal. From here, the expertise skill. When attacking an enemy troop, so this is again constraining this to open fielding. Cavalry units led by this commander gain 35% defense, and their troop deals 25% more skill damage. My God, 35% defense and 25% more skill damage. Okay, this is enhancing. Good God, it's enhancing the skill we just looked at. Man, I was like, that's a lot of buff, but it's actually just 5% more defense, 5% more skill damage, and double the healing, which is like actually not exciting. So the expertise skill here is super optional. I mean, it really is not all that significant. So we'll have to see the way each of these skills scale up, but it could be that you get the majority of the punching power at 5, 5, 5, 1, maxing the first 3 skills. Because again, the whole leaving combat thing's not all exciting here. It all depends on how much the defense sort of scales up and how much the skill damage scales up in this 4th skill. So overall, this kit is extremely strong. I mean, the developers are absolutely pushing the power level on what you can expect from cavalry commanders and commanders in general in the game. I think this teaser is really interesting as a sort of what we're getting and leaves me really hyped for like, God, what is the official set of skills for the rally commander going to be? And I say for the rally commander because this is a lot of punching power committed to troops only. I don't know if he's going to be good enough for a cavalry rally. And certainly I don't think he's going to be good enough for a cavalry rally in the KVK format. I think it's Warriors Unbound, where you get an artifact that like lets you use one troop type as another. I don't think he's got enough pushed power level that he's necessarily the rally, because really it's the expertise skill, the 4th skill, and even the 3rd skill is pretty committed to this commander being in open field situations. But overall, his power level is extremely strong. Even for garrison swarming, he's like not as strong as you might think. Like they've pushed his power level specifically in a way that like everyone can enjoy it for them. I mean, really, like if you're open fielding in the game, which free to play to pay to win, you need to be open fielding as much as you possibly can to win your KVKs. I think that this commander serves that role specifically. I think he will be fine to swarm a garrison, but I actually don't think he's going to be great. It's very interesting to see them sort of push the power level over here, especially with the active skill, but control it on the back end and control it with the need to be the primary commander. So where does this leave us? Well, when it comes to cavalry pairings, let me jump in game to show it to you. If you've been subscribed to my channel, and consider subscribing if you haven't already, you know several things about what I'm about to recommend. First of all, I have been saying for ages, in fact, in my tier list videos, which I release monthly, I talk about what the best commander investments are in Rise of Kingdoms. These are the most watched tier lists for the game. And I have been saying that you should not invest in XY. Geez, there he is. There's so many commanders. It's actually hard to find them these days. I have been saying for ages that XY was going to become a bad investment. And that is exactly what's happened. If you use 2 cavalry marches, which is what I would recommend, and have been recommending for quite some time, you know that XY was the 4th best cavalry commander. The 3 cavalry commanders that I put above him in priority included, let's just use the filter already here, make this a little bit easier. It included Nevsky, it included William, and it included Joan. All 3 of them were above XY. Why is that? Although he does area of effect damage with a debuff, remember that one of his skills, unfortunately it is his 3rd skill, is committed to actually fighting garrisons, which for most players you're not going to do. So it's funny because XY sort of has the opposite effect of the new commander. XY is pretty moderate in the field, but then gets better if you're hitting a garrison. Whereas the new commander is like really, really good if you fight in the field and gets worse if you hit a garrison. It's very interesting that they've done that, because when you're actually swarming a garrison, it will be very interesting to see how much difference there actually is between XY and the new commander. However, he's chopped, man. If you use 3 marches, you'll use him. But if you're using only 2 marches of cavalry, XY hits the bin, and your new cavalry combination is, in my opinion, going to be Nevsky with William, and then the new commander is the primary paired with Joan. Now, there are a bunch of ways that you could do this, but why did I split them this way? The way that I think about pairing commanders is that in a perfect world, you want one with area of effect damage, and one with a ton of defensive stats if you can get them. And of course, they both want to push the power level of each other if they can. Buffing things like skill damage is really crazy. So how does that work? Well, in this case, you've got Alexander Nevsky boosting skill damage and tons of defensive stats, paired with William, who doesn't have really very many defensive stats. You can use the new cavalry commander paired with Joan, who she has, by the way, a bunch of punch, but not a lot of defensive stats, whereas the new commander's got 35% defense when you're hitting troops, which is really good. He also boosts skill damage. So I think that he'll have the same sort of effect on Joan. And the reason that I think he replaces the Nevsky-Joan combo is that you want the new commander to accelerate something that you're doing in the combat. That needs to either be a debuff or it needs to be some sort of buff to your march. And what the new commander does is gives you 150 rage reduction. So your skill cycle is going to fire sooner. So if your new commander uses their active skill and then Joan uses their active skill, 2 seconds later, that's 1 second of downtime, then boom, she fires off. I think that could be a really good combo that I'll certainly want to test, because this is going to give her march and a couple other marches a damage boost and a rage restoration benefit. Seems pretty good. Alternatively, you know what you might just say is, you know what? Hey, look, we know that Nevsky and Joan are good together. So instead of splitting up Nevsky and Joan, just leave them together, man. They're so good together. And you could go the new cavalry commander paired with William. And I also really like this, because what does that benefit does that give you? Well, remember that the new commander is all about fielding. Okay, so in the open field, you're likely to hit multiple targets with the AoE, which is going to give a rage restoration effect and a defense boost to your team sooner, because the new commander reduces your rage requirement, and then sooner than you normally would, you're firing off this skill. And you might even get 2 skill cycles, man. And it just seems really powerful. Plus, the active skill here is really good. Damage dealt to each target is reduced for additional targets, but attacked troops' extra skill damage from buffs cannot take effect. William is the counter. So you could pair the new commander with William, and you've got the new commander and his counter paired together to absolutely wreck your enemies. I think that you're absolutely going to want to use the new commander as the primary. I think that's going to make him get focused a lot. And I think that neither of these secondaries is really going to give him a lot of defensive support. So if you haven't already invested in some good cavalry gear that's got a bunch of health, now's a great time. Start with the chest and the boots, then get yourself a helmet that's got some defense. The epic gloves and weapon actually work really well for a really, really long time. And obviously the legendary legs are great, but so are the epic ones. I think they give health as well. So you've got a lot of options to give your cavalry march some defensive punch, but I've talked about that a ton in other videos. Now, besides the tried and true 2 combos that I'm recommending here with Nevsky and William and Joan and the new commander, there are, of course, going to be other commanders that are going to be great if you pair them with the new cavalry commander. And, you know, some really obvious options here are going to include commanders like Mehmed. Okay, Mehmed seems like a fine choice if you didn't have a better option. He's extremely versatile and I think would work well in this situation as a secondary commander. In addition, Honda Tadakatsu is of course going to be a great commander. Although Honda also brings march speed and these cavalry are going to fly. Good area of effect damage and damage mitigation are great here. I think it's easier than ever to run 3 cavalry combos if you really wanted to, using some combination of also bringing XY back into the mix and also either Honda or Mehmed paired with, you know, one of the other cavalry commanders. I mean, I think what you end up doing is like XY with either Mehmed or Honda, and then you use the 2 best pairs that I was just talking about. And that's how you would make 3 cavalry pairs. Cavalry they just have really great power level right now. I'm actually really hyped for them. If you want to see my guidance for what the best cavalry equipment is, I'll have a card in the end screen that talks all about that. And if what you want to see is my legendary investment tier list, where I called this shot many times for many months about XY being the commander that would ultimately be on the chopping block, card will be in the end screen for that one in just a second as well.